and double check you are able to see my screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So first off, we really want to thank you for everyone who sent in feedback from our last presentation. We got a lot of great data. And so today, the biggest thing that we're answering is the biggest question that we got, which is ultimately, what do you think 2025 looks like? Part one. And part number two, for most people, how can I do better in 2025 than I did in 2024? So
Mm-hmm.
those are the topics of today. And the other thing that we have made a modification of based on feedback is we've added an additional 5 minutes at the end for Q&A. So please drop in any and all questions that you have in the chat throughout the presentation. We'll go through as many of those as we can in the 5 minutes. And then afterwards, we'll be able to send any other notes out on anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so as we get into the lovely update from 2024, I'm going to start with just a little bit of history. As many of you know, mortgage rates went up at one of the largest increases that we have seen at any point in the last 25 years in 2022 and 2023. And that put one of the biggest halts on property sales that most people on this call have seen in their real estate career. One of the things that also has been really interesting is that home prices have consistently increased. Much of that is due to because people had low interest rates on their home and they decided not to sell. And so the inventory that was available went up in price and inflation helped. And right now you can see that home prices, this is the national home prices, are running about 10% above the long-term trend line. And so again, it's not crazy over, but again, we are above the long-term trend line for where home prices can be.
Bob,
And
can I
so
ask you
what,
a question real quick on that?
yes,
So does that mean that because we're 10% above the trend line that we're going to have a 10% crash?
what it means is that over time, and again, you can see this goes back to the 1980s, is that home prices usually revert to the mean. Again, they revert to that long-term trend line. The question that nobody knows is when. And as you see, most of those trends to get either over or under are measured in about a decade-long cycles. We've currently been running since COVID, or we've been running about 4 years above the long-term trend line. Nobody is currently predicting a crash, but we're going to get into some of the data for 2025 in just a second. Again, slide number one, cost of money is up. Slide number two, cost of homes are up. And what does that mean? That means that homes are the least affordable at any point in time than they have been since the 1970s. I'm going to say that again. Homes have been the least affordable than they have been at any point since the 1970s. And of course, what that means, and I think what you're all feeling, is that there's a tremendous amount of angst in the market. There's a tremendous amount of issues because, again, buyers feel that it's expensive due to the cost of money and the cost of the home, not even taking into account the cost of insurance. But when you take into account the cost of money and the cost of homes, it feels very, very expensive to buy a home right now. What that means, of course, is that the number of home sales has dropped dramatically. And again, this is one of the largest drops in home sales from 2023 and 2024 that we have seen at any point since the 1980s outside of the Great Recession. Paige, I think you wanted to also highlight a point on this slide.
Yeah, if you take nothing away from this presentation, other than what this slide says, is this is the predictor for what your next couple of years is going to look like. And let me draw the correlation here. If you go back to this slide and see what things look like at '07, where we're above the dotted line, and then '08 crashes and you see the drop, you slightly go up a little bit of '09, 10, and 11, but mostly your 8, 9, 10, and 11 are pretty damn flat, right? So if you then revert and look at 2021 and see that we went way up and then we moved down and now we're down and we're down again, we're in that cycle. So we're not out of the woods. And if you go back and look and see in 2009, 10, 11, it takes us until 2012, 2013 to really start working out of this situation. For most of you on this call, you all weren't in business back then. The reality is, lots of us, including me, We're able to make a living in this market, and you can too. But you need to be very clear that the market of last year is likely going to be very similar to the market of this year and possibly parts of 2026.
And again, that's the takeaway so far. Cost of money's up, cost of homes are up, affordability is at nearly an all-time high or second highest since the 70s, which means there's a lot fewer transactions. Again, this is on a national basis. Also, when you look at it, days on market, right? Again, 2023 was down about 20% from 2022. Days on market this year are higher than they were last year, which again, many of you know and many of you feel. And so, what does that lead to? Does that lead to a lot of realtors having a lot of angst or a lot of realtors having a great time with a lot of alcohol? Ultimately, the big thing that is an actual advantage for many of you on this call is that the number of realtors in the market is declining. Now, again, the reason that we say that that is an advantage to you is because there were more realtors that joined the space over the last 5 years than at any prior time. But one of the things that you're seeing is that because of the angst, because of the lack of volume, is that you have a lot of people getting out of the business, which is removing a number of your competitors.
Mhm.
And so your answer is from when you look at the national data, you're like, okay, Bob, I understand 2024 was a hard market. So, right, the question is how do I thrive in 2025? And the first part of the answer to that question is, okay, do we think 2025 is going to look a lot different than 2024, right? Can I just pretend that hope and a prayer is going to change it? And so let's look at that data on a nationwide basis. As you can see from mortgage rates over the last about 6 months, they've been relatively flat. Today, an inflation number is going to come out. Inflation, again, is expected to lower, but we're probably not going to get that big of a movement on mortgage rates thanks to the underlying data.
Mhm.
Under inflation itself, as you look at, again, the trend line, last 6 months, inflation kind of has been coming down, but it's flat, right? It's not a big jump up. It's not a big jump down. When you look at the other underpinning current of why rates would move, it's the economy. And if you look at that line and take nothing away from it, it's kind of consistent, right? The little blue lines as the economy's growing, it's kind of been growing consistently.
Mhm.
If you look at unemployment, right, for about the last 2 years, unemployment, it's been inching up, but it's kind of the same. And then home prices, again, we talked about they've gone up a little bit, and you can see here that they've gone up a little bit, but there's nothing here in the data to say that it's going to be a massive change compared to where it was last year. And so
Right, because
again,
remember, Bob, that the government uses the interest rate like a throttle to turn the market hotter or turn the market cooler so that they keep inflation, the GDP, which is growth, and unemployment within a range that is healthy for the overall economy. So they're looking at these numbers saying, unemployment's not too bad. Growth is growing. It's still good. Inflation's coming down. So maybe we have it right with where the interest rate is to keep everything sort of at a steady state, which is ultimately what the government's trying to do.
which again is your big takeaway from all this data is it's kind of like an eye chart. You go to the eye doctor, you're like, do they look different or do they look about the same? And you're like, they kind of look about the same. And when
Mhm.
things look about the same, it means mortgage rates are going to be about the same. And that means 2025 is likely to be a lot like 2024 on a nationwide basis. So again, at this point of the conversation, you're like, 2022 down, 2023 down, 2024 down. The data nationwide suggests that 2025 is going to be very similar to 2024. So, okay, is Houston going to be that different than where we were in 2024? Now, if you look at the bar graph on the far right, this is again a really important thing to notice for Houston home sales is 2024 volume, right? This is the number of homes that sell was pretty darn consistent to where we were around 2017 or 2018. Again, on the slide that we were at earlier, nationwide home sales were similar to where they were in 2008. Again, this is the advantage of being in Houston. We're adding about 50,000 jobs a year. Houston has outperformed the national average because, again, we have more jobs. But for many of you on the call, or many of you that have been realtors only since 2018, 2019, 2020, right? This is the worst market, again, by number of sales that you've seen at any point in your career. Because
Mhm.
again, the number of home sales is very consistent to about where we were in 2020, 2017.
Which was a balanced market, guys. So buyers had a chance and sellers were uncomfortable.
When you look at that, again, as we've gone through a number of presentations so far this year, is your first part of the year was pretty darn good, right? Most people made most of their money this year in the real estate business in the first 5 to 6 months of the year. And then you see starting in June, right, a little bit before the presidential election, right, uncertainty in the market, uncertainty causes fear, fear causes buyers and sellers to delay. And so then you had a slowdown. And as you look at through the trend line is right, the last couple months, there's been a lot of realtors that have been slow because there's been a lot less sales than there had been in 2 or 3 years ago. Other thing to look at, and this is again Houston home prices, is the prices of homes are pretty darn consistent with the high, right? 2022 was the high watermark, but the difference between 2023 and 2024, it's really been regional dependent. Some
Mhm.
neighborhoods down a little, some neighborhoods up a little, some neighborhoods up a lot, but it's been pretty darn consistent on pricing over the last 3 years. Specifically, when you look on days on market, we're very much following the national trend line. Is our days on market are longer, right? More of a balanced market than we've seen at any point over the last 2 years. And specifically, when you look at pending sales, right? Our pending sales numbers right now are a little bit higher than they were the last 2 years. But don't forget, we're trying to make up for a dredgeo. We're trying to make up for a number of storms. We're trying to make up for parts of the presidential election. And as you can see, the number of pending sales after the presidential election, it absolutely did go up. And so you see that from the last few weeks as there was a bump of people who were waiting on the sidelines.
Mhm.
But last week and the week prior, you see we're very much consistent with the trend line of where we were the last 2 years.
Which is seasonality, guys. This is a seasonality to your business, and it happens historically every year.
So again, the data so far, right? As you know, 2023 hard, 2024 hard. The question for 2025 from this data, national basis, things are about the same. Houston basis, also, things are about the same. So leading into the question of, right, how do I thrive in 2025? When you look at this data, the key data point is that 7,882 homes went under contract in the last 4 weeks. Again, I'm going to say that again. In Houston, 7,882 homes went under contract. And the big question, of course, to ask yourself is, right, how many of those home sales do you need in order for your business to be successful? And here's where I'm gonna pause and I'm gonna drive this in. Is again, 2024 hard. Key answer to 2025 is, hey, Bob Page, national data from KW. Do you think the market's going to be different? The answer is no. We think it's going to be very consistent to how it was. On a national basis, we think that interest rates are going to stay about where they are. We think the trend line is going to stay about where it is. In a Houston basis, we think it's going to stay about where it is. So if you want something different in your business in 2025 than where it was in 2024, the key question you want to ask yourself is, of those 8,000 contracts or pending sales a month, about how many of them do you need and how do you get there? Again, we brought in Gene Rivers last week, had a phenomenal overview. And this model here, he said, is the model of a successful agent, which is, again, for most agents on the life that they want to live, earning a phenomenal six-figure income, the number of contracts they need every month is about four. And the way to get those four contracts a month, which again typically lead to about three closings because right, something always happens, life happens,
Mhm.
is to make about 200 contacts a month. Calls, meeting people. We're going to talk about some of that in a second. Text messages, social media, but the opportunity to talk to and collect information from about 200 people a month is going to lead to about four contracts a month. And again, four out of 7,882 is a very reasonable and realistic number with focus and with motivation. And ultimately, that's the key item is, right, the market's hard. We think the market stays hard in 2025. You want to find your motivation, and fundamentally, you want to find the motivated people because your number one job in the market that we're in now, that we think continues, is to find the best method to get face to face with a prospect and ensure that you're doing the steps that you need to win in advance, which more than anything else is to be able to deliver the high quality buyer and seller kits that we put together that help give you that advantage to win.
Yep. I mean, the reality is if you win before you get to that meeting, most buyers and most sellers only meet with one agent. If you do the pre-work in advance, it becomes a slam dunk. And the only reason then they don't hire you is because you mucked it up in the meeting.
That's exactly right. This was a fascinating story that Gene played with us last week, and Paige and I have gone through, and it was probably one of the most eye-opening experiences that we've had. So Gene asked the room of about 25 people, please raise your hand if you're considering moving in the next 12 months. And the part that was fascinating is about 20% of the hands went up. And again, this is a room of real estate agents. What's so interesting is that, again, on a normal year, right, and we're going to again define normal given the abnormal markets thanks to COVID, the kind of the blessings that we all got, is that about 6% of people move. And in 2024, and again, what we are forecasting for 2025 is about 3% of people move. Again, part of that is due to inventories locked up with people who have lower interest rates. We think, again, it's expensive to move. Cost of money is expensive. Cost of insurance expensive. Cost of houses are expensive. But life happens. And your job is to find the 3%. And again, it's if you have 20% of people that raise their hand and say, I'm thinking about moving, and Paige and I played this game with other people since last week, and we see it's about the same.
Mhm.
How many of you are thinking about moving? 20% of hands go up. Then the question is of those 20%, how do you find and get in front of the 20% that actually move? Three key questions. And I'd say if you're going to write anything down, write down these three questions. Question number one, why are you moving? Right? Looking for people who have life events. Got a new baby, got a new job, got a new promotion, got a lot of money. Hey, I've got to be over next to my grandkids because some stuff has happened in our family. Got married, got divorced, had a death in the family. Your 3% of the population is primarily moving for life reasons. Key question number two, by when do you have to move? Right? Question number two is by when do you have to move? And ultimately, question number three, which is your money question, is what happens if you miss that date? Again, what happens if you miss that date? And you're going to find out really quickly who is serious about moving in the next 90 days because the person who's serious about buying or selling is going to be able to give you an answer to this question. The person who's just a looky-loo and a tire kicker and probably isn't part of your 3% is going to give you an answer that very much smells and feels like, well, we'll wait.
See, the reason some of us didn't hit our goals this year is because we spent time hoping we could give non-motivated buyers and non-motivated sellers enough data or love or care to make them want to move. We cannot make them want anything more than they want it for themselves, right? I would move if I found the right home that had a bigger entertaining space. Well, when do I need to have, when do I have to have that happen? Oh, whenever it happens. What happens if I miss that date? Nothing. I just continue to stay here, right? You took me around looking at houses, not really understanding that I'm just happen to look at houses with you because I like you.
And the more focused you get on the people who actually have to move by qualifying with those three really simple questions, the better your 2025 is going to be. and that's the key for how you thrive in 25, is spend the majority of your time on people that are moving in the next 90 days because you're either calling to find them, right? And again, you're looking for 20% of 20%. So you're looking to find about 3% of people, which is why you need about 200 contacts a month, or you're helping them close a transaction. That's where your time goes in 2025 is the best way to thrive.
Mhm.
Aaron, do you have a story for us?
I do have a story for you. Hi everybody. The guy, the lovely gentleman on your screen there is Tim. He's one of our newest associate members, and he has been rocking it. I think accountability has been his theme for the year, and that's going to be my theme for 2025 as well as accountability. So, our most powerful tool to hold ourselves accountable is our calendar. Tim just been in our program for a little over 45 days now. He has 9 buyer reps that are signed, and he has 4 contracts already on the table.
So, Aaron, just repeating, if the goal is 4 contracts a month, you're saying that Tim did that this month.
Absolutely. Yeah, Tim crushed it.
Congratulations.
That's awesome.
And absolutely. And some ways that, I'm planning to hold myself accountable are scheduling 3 call blocks every week. So some suggestions would be a 9 to 3 call block, a 3 to 8 call block, and one other one of your choice that might fit your life a little bit better. And then after those call blocks, scheduling an hour to office time so that you can hit all the emails that you need to send out, the guides that you need to send out, and make a lot of your logs. So it's not eating up your call block time.
Aaron, what is the advantage of having call blocks between 9 and 3 or 3 and 8?
Well, everybody lives a different life. So, 9 to 3, you might pick up somebody who is mid shift or evening shift. So they might be up and around. And then your 3 to 8, you might be talking with somebody who is just getting off work and is able to talk with you. So I think splitting it up is really important. So you're not just calling out one single time, only getting one type of client.
And what is a potential advantage to quote unquote only having 3 call blocks a week instead of attempting to do it daily?
Well, I think what we've seen is that if you have it daily, you tend not to be as productive, and you might fill that call block with other things that are not a priority for your business. So if you have less call blocks that you can commit to each week, you have a higher success rate of achieving those call blocks and your goal for the year.
And you can get the 200 contacts a month.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Aaron, anything else you want to talk about?
I'm hosting Power Hour on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So anybody that is interested and wants to kind of get on the train to setting up their 2025, please reach out. We'd love to share the link with you and celebrate your wins. And coming 2025, we're going to have I'm stealing Bob's quote here, some really tasty treats for the Power Hour. So be on the lookout for some updates to that.
Perfect. Brittany, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I wanted to touch on just the presentation that Gene Rivers had the other day last week. Many of us were there, but some weren't. And so, there were just so many nuggets of advice that Gene gave us and that we can implement. But one of my takeaways is the importance of leveraging. And Gene said that there are 3 key leverage points in real estate, and those are systems, tools, and people. Now, our team does have the systems, we have the tools, and we have the people in our database and massive lead generation. But I think what we forget sometimes, or at least I do, is that we're missing so much opportunity by not prospecting in our everyday interactions. Whether that's with family, friends, kid events, at the gym, the grocery store, past and current clients, there's, always an opportunity to always improve our business. So included in that is, care calls to your most recent clients for every 30 days to check in and see how they're doing. And then also contact your past clients every 4 months and ask them for referrals. Gene was big on asking for referrals. He said, don't assume that your past clients know that you still need their referrals. Tell them, ask them. And he had a great script for asking for those referrals that I would love to use. So, overall, making calls is going to be the number one theme to being successful in this industry. But getting out and connecting with the people is also a way to turn those leads into contacts, which eventually turns into closed transactions.
Fantastic. And Paige, you
Yes.
have an update
Yes.
for us.
So if you're on the call and you are like me, and this is the season of self-reflection, right? Shakespeare wrote, "To thine own self be true." Bob and I, as part of the Gary Keller Mastermind with some of the top teams in the US, went out to our colleagues across the nation and combined a list of 25 hard questions you should ask yourself as you plan your new year. And so if you want a copy of that list, if you will just email pmartin@houstonproperties.com, we will get that list over to you. It's a great starting point as you think through what 2025 needs to look like and what you're going to do differently.
I love that. Again, the one thing that we've seen, and again, it's just part of a theme and it's part of a story, is that many people don't like to make 200 contacts a month because you're getting told no about 190 times, right?
Mhm.
About 190 no's for 200 contacts.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we've seen a lot over the last couple months is that some agents will do anything that they possibly can not to make calls and make appointments. That includes, right, other menial tasks that would be $5 an hour tasks. It would be showing one person more than 8 houses, right? Showing agent job, very different than a real estate agent job. It could be spending time going through paperwork or photo descriptions on the 27th photo that you know is not going to sell a house, or virtual staging a certain photo to look a certain way. That's robbing them and their family of the money that they can make as a real estate agent, because getting paid as a real estate agent is a very comfortable, very healthy six-figure job. Like doing virtual staging or doing some photo descriptions is a couple dollar an hour job. And so some people have been falling into the trap in 2024 of getting away from their one thing, which is I got to go get face to face with prospects, and I've got to either make calls to find those motivated prospects, or I've got to help win autographs to win new clients or win new contracts. If you are in the bucket where you're like, oh, I don't know how I can make 200 contacts, or, oh, I've got all these other stuff I've got to do. These are the questions that we'd really recommend that you ask yourself, because it helps you get motivated and focused on the thing that matters to you, which is probably taking care of your family, having enough money to do that, not only in 2025, but in the years to come through investments, paying off debt, and getting the opportunity to really focus on the part of the business that brings you income, which is contacts and appointments.
2 minutes.
And so in the 2 minutes for wrap up, before we have the 5 minutes of questions, Paige, will you say again, if you have anybody that's struggling with accountability or they're struggling with
or do
where
you
to
want to
put
say
their
it for
time?
me? You're going to say it for me. We can't say this enough. Truly, accountability is the path. Nick Saban says life is pain, and you can either suffer the pain of discipline, which is accountability, or you can suffer the pain of disappointment. Right? So if you want 2025 to be different than 2024, accountability is your key. And perhaps you're on this call today and you're saying to yourself, in the immortal words of Mariah Carey, all I want for Christmas is accountability. Then anyone on this call is welcome to join our power hours. Aaron gave the times. They're Wednesday and Thursday this week and next week. We'll be putting out our January dates pretty soon. But we would love for you guys to show up as a chance to sit and time block with other people doing the same thing, because there is power in doing the same activity with other people, knowing that you're not alone. Being by yourself in a room at your house is real easy to get distracted. And then, of course, if you want our list of 25 questions, just email us for either to join the Power Hour or also for our updated list of 25 questions. We're here at 9 o'clock.
I love it. I've also got a few of you that have sent me text message with questions. I appreciate that. I may not get to all of them today. Paige, you'll be able to go through the questions that you have. But again, the unifying theme, this was one of the big ones in terms of what kind of the key message to take away is right. The market's hard. We understand it's hard. We understand there's been emotion this year. We understand it's been difficult this year. We understand there's been frustration this year. We understand that Mercury is in retrograde. And we understand that we have had a number of people that are on crying on the floor in their house, both here and nationwide.
Yep.
We understand that.
Mm-hmm.
The key message to take away from this presentation and to take away from the national data and to take away from the Houston data is that we don't think 2025 from a fundamental market perspective is going to look much different than 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you had a great 2024, feel good, right? Do the same set of activities. If instead your 2025 is not where you wanted it to be, understand that the way you solve that is by looking in the mirror. And more than anything else, it's spend the time over the holidays on self-reflection, right? What do you and your family need? What is the lifestyle you want to live? What are the investments you want to make to pay for your lifestyle in the future? And what are the debts that you want to overcome? And specifically, when you do that, it's how much money do you need, right? Go get your math path. As you get your math path, again, for most agents, it's around 200 contacts and around 6 appointments a month and around 4 contracts a month. You can do that, right? You're in a market and you're in a region that supports that because in our region, we have 7,882 contracts in the last 4 weeks. You can get 4. But in order to get that 4, in order to get your 4 every month, what you specifically need to do is spend time on those people by making contacts and then driving those people to sign autographs with you where you're their agent and you're able to help them get into a house. Paige, of the questions that we have and that you've seen.
Priscilla just dropped in and then took back out, I think, or I can't see it anymore. The question, the list that Gene Rivers had of what he has people ask before they go. Priscilla, that is the lead questionnaire that we send out in our listing kit and our buyer kit, where you circle what the motivation is. That is that question. So it's integrated in your packets already.
Well, were they also supposed to compile things like mortgage payoff, any disclosures or anything like that to have before the meeting?
No, that's not part of our packet and our process. Okay. The question that he was largely talking about was the question of understanding motivation so that you could get to the concept of, what do they want to do? When do they want to do it by? And what happens if that doesn't happen?
I see. Okay. So it's the combination of those two things.
Yes. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
We've got 2 minutes left. If anybody else has some question, drop it in the chat. But I have just some housekeeping items for those of you on our team. Additionally to the Power Hour, don't forget that Marilyn's upcoming class is on the 18th. Our holiday soiree is here at our house on the 20th. Coffee and conversations, your script practices begin on January 7th. January 8th, Bob and I are going to be teaching a mastery moment. So if there's something that you have a burning question about that you really want to go deep on and learn about, please let us know and we will start teaching on that. Bob and I are going to add a monthly mastery moment teaching for you guys to see how we can help you continue to enhance your skills, since knowledge is one of our core values. We're looking forward to seeing some of you on our team trip in Tulum in January, and then we will be back with a market update on January 22nd. So a busy end of the year and start to the new year where we're looking for lots of success. We know it's been hard, but we know that you guys are doing the Lord's work. So thank you for helping people make wise decisions. What you do matters, and we care for all of you very, very deeply.
Perfect. Thank you for your time. Have a great rest of your morning.